Great to see you again. Thanks for joining us. Sum up for me the main point of your new essay, Federal Ministers' Priorities Out of Touch with Financial Reality. What are their priorities? Let's start with that. What is the top priority of the Liberal government? Can you discern it?
Well, that's a great question, and it's certainly not getting spending under control. I mean, Ottawa's priorities are completely divorced from financial reality and really the hardships facing so many Canadian families outside of Ottawa. Here's a perfect example. You have the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, who is borrowing nearly $500 million every single day, but Trudeau's mandate letter to the finance minister doesn't even mention the debt or the deficit. Now, that should be a pretty key priority for a finance minister, don't you think? So us taxpayers, we're just left here scratching our heads, wondering if anyone in the Trudeau government is even thinking about the $1 trillion debt.
Yeah, and I read the other day, and I didn't take the time to check it, but I heard that her mandate letter, which is sort of like the to-do list or the short-term job description. So every cabinet minister gets a mandate letter. It's, hey, these are your priorities for this term in Parliament. I understand the word inflation wasn't even in there. I saw that in the headline. I haven't put my eyes on the mandate letter myself. That's pretty incredible, but that's pretty telling. As Trudeau said, he doesn't even think about monetary policy, does he?
Well, Ezra, I mean, inflation may be the key economic issue facing Canadian families. It's certainly something that I'm worried about, right? You go fuel up your car, then you're worried about whether or not you have enough money to buy groceries. But what we've seen here, we haven't seen a plan from Ottawa to provide a little bit more affordability. What we've seen from the Trudeau government is essentially the Prime Minister bragging about his future carbon tax hikes. We've already seen the carbon tax go up twice during the middle of the pandemic, and they're getting set to to increase their carbon tax for a third time during the pandemic next year.
Huh. I forgot about that. I mean, the fact that they raised taxes during a pandemic is crazy. I heard a definition of inflation the other day, and I thought it was really useful. Inflation is a stealth tax, and here's why. I mean, if you're earning $100, but the cost of everything goes up, let's say 5%, you may not have had a pay cut. Like, it's really a stealth pay cut, because now it's like you only earned 95 cents. And the more inflation goes up, if you're not getting more dollars to keep up, you're actually falling behind. I really think that that's going to shock Canadians who have, really, we've had a whole generation without high inflation. I think most people don't know how bad it could get, because the last time was really a generation ago, wasn't it?
Well, Ezra, inflation is also taxation without legislation. And you have to really wonder here if our members of Parliament can even understand the real financial struggles facing Canadians. I mean, after all, our members of Parliament have pocketed not one, but two pay raises during the pandemic, ranging from an extra $6,900 for your backbench member of Parliament, all the way up to an extra $13,800 for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And you know what, Ezra? They're getting ready to gobble up their third pandemic pay raise come April 2022. So while you and yours have been struggling, the private sector, massive pay cuts, job losses, small businesses closing down, your supposed representative in Ottawa has been over there increasing their own pay.
Huh. I remember, it's pretty gross. And if I recall, it's on April Fool's Day that they get those pay raises, which is just so on the nose. It's too much. If this was a Hollywood script, the agent would say, no, that's too, the studio head, no, on April Fool's Day, that's too much. But to have their pay raise on April Fool's Day is quite something. And every year it's just appalling. But let me ask you about something I saw in the United States, because for all of their flaws, they seem to have the checks and balances thing down pat. Trudeau uses the phrase "build back better." Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom says build back better. And of course, Joe Biden says build back better. I don't know where this slogan comes from. It's just another way of saying spend like you've never spent before. But the amazing thing, and I'd love for you to comment on this, is it looks like Biden's build back better multi-trillion-dollar spending plan was stopped not by a Republican, but by a cautious, moderate Democrat from West Virginia named Joe Manchin, who simply said, nah, it's too much, it's too out of hand, I'm not in. And so a Democrat stop the runaway train. And here we are in Canada with our Build Back Better overspending. Even though the Democrats won the presidential election, so they got a much higher percentage of the vote than Trudeau got, they have more checks and balances on their crazy spending than we do. I find that's a paradox.
Well, Ezra, one of the key problems that we're facing here in Canada is that you do have the Trudeau government on this runaway spending train, but you also have Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole, who also wants to be on that runaway spending train. Remember, he just spent the last election telling voters that he wanted to outspend the last Liberal government budget by about $50 billion.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.